Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new episode of World Panorama, the only show that gives you a 360-degree view of major global news. I'm Sana Khan. Before we get you detailed reports, here's a look at the top stories this week. Moscow snubs New Delhi by postponing the defense meet. Instead, Russia's foreign minister visits Pakistan to enhance ties. Barack Obama and Mitt Romney battle over economic visions. Romney gains ground in round one of the US presidential debate. UN voices concern over escalating tensions along Syrian-Turkish border. Turkey approves military intervention in Syria. And it is the end of the road for legend Michael Schumacher. Seven-time Formula One world champion announces his retirement at the end of the season. And straight to the story in focus this week, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov held talks with his Pakistani counterpart Hina Rabbani Khar on the 4th of October. Lavrov arrived in Islamabad on a two-day visit on Wednesday as Pakistan's Army Chief General Ashfaq Parvez Kayani flew to Russia for talks on defense cooperation. While there have been efforts to downplay this recent postponement of India-Russia defense minister level talks by Moscow, the last-minute rescheduling has brought to the surface a problem that has, in fact, been simmering for a while in this otherwise strong military relationship. This delay coincides with the visit of Pakistan's army chief to Moscow. Now, while General Kayani's visit there may be seen as a poor consolation prize for the cancellation of Vladimir Putin's tour of Pakistan this month, the fact that Islamabad has become a factor in India's military ties with Russia adds a whole new dimension to New Delhi's outlook. We'll be discussing that and more with our guest this week, Professor Anuradha Chinoy from the School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University. Welcome to the show, ma'am. Before that, have a look at this report.
Pakistan and Russia agreed on Thursday to arrange a high-profile bilateral visit to showcase improvement in their ties. The ties had suffered a temporary setback after Russian President Vladimir Putin cancelled his keenly awaited visit to Islamabad. When asked what kind of a message Moscow was sending to Pakistan through the cancelled presidential visit, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov clarified there were serious rescheduling problems.
Что касается вопроса ко мне, то
President Putin sent a message to President Zardari that his visit could not take place because of scheduling problems, and we hope that the two presidents can meet at the next presidential summit very soon.
Не позволил ему приехать в Пакистан.
In their opening statements, both sides acknowledged there was convergence of views on most issues of importance at the regional and international levels, including the situation in Afghanistan, Syria and Libya, and the Iranian nuclear program.
I am satisfied with the substance of our talks. The continuation of contacts and the intensity of our meetings are good at the regional and global level. We will continue to maintain relations to fight terrorism. Our talks were fruitful and the Intergovernmental Commission is an important mechanism.
Pakistan Foreign Minister Hina Rabbani Khar too appeared upbeat and said there was consensus between the two sides on further strengthening and improving relations under the guidelines of Parliament, which had outlined such a policy.
In the recent years, we have seen a clear, intensified interaction between our two nations, which starts at the highest levels, but is clearly present at different planes. At the presidential, at the prime ministerial, and certainly at the ministerial levels also. So clearly there is national consensus amongst the political divide, amongst the people of Pakistan, that relations with Russia must be strengthened.
The warming of ties between Islamabad and Moscow comes amid a persistently strained relationship between Pakistan and the United States. There are concerns in India, however, about the growing proximity between its neighbor and its longtime ally, as the Russian foreign minister's rushed visit to Islamabad came at the cost of a planned trip to India.
Time to bring in our guest at this point. Professor Chinoy, you know, these latest events, the cancellation of Putin's visit to Pakistan, Lavrov visiting and meeting Hina Rabbani Khar, and then Kayani flying to Moscow, India, Moscow cancelling their visit to India, postponing it rather. What do you make of all this?
Well, look, first one must keep in mind the fact that the relationship between Pakistan and Russia is nowhere near the relationship between India and Russia. There's too long a historical and all kinds of gaps. But Russia and Pakistan are both trying to change and improve their relations with each other, especially given the fact, two facts. One, of the American withdrawal from Afghanistan, and that Pakistan is going to be a key player. Second, that Pakistan is slowly, because of pressure from below, from its people, having a strained relationship with the US. And third, because China and Pakistan are close allies and Russia is a close ally of China. So there's pressure on both of them to improve ties with each other. But nonetheless, these ties will not come at the cost of India. And the indication is that the much kind of touted visit of Putin, which they've been talking about for a year, was actually cancelled. And instead you send, the foreign minister Lavrov. So, and therefore Lavrov had to change. So we don't have to read too much, but the fact is, also, I think Russia has also been feeling of late that India has been giving such key defense contracts to the US and to Israel, and suddenly from a very big number one, their position in India's defense has also been declining. So they're looking for new contracts also. So there is a continuously changing geopolitics, and I believe India has to make a greater effort with Russia to continuously make sure that they keep this privileged relationship they have with India ongoing.
So, Russia's focus, as you said, could be, Afghanistan, it could be counter-terrorism, it could be even economic reasons as far as Pakistan is concerned. But then again, what does India have to read in whatever is going on? Because we see some sort of an extra effort from both these sides to sort of, come to some, understanding. And then you have, the defense meet between India and Russia also being postponed. And India not too very happy with the way Russia is going along as far as Gorshkov is concerned. Other assignments, there have been too many delays.
Yes, there have been delays. And but also in India, there's pressure on the Kudankulam plant. There's popular resentment on it. The Supreme Court has said you have to ensure. So you see, Russia is also safeguarding its own interests. But the two sides really have to work. Both Russia and India have to work at each other to continue building the traditional relationship. They cannot rely just on history. But as far as Pakistan is concerned, you see, Russia's position vis-a-vis Kashmir, India's seat in the Security Council, all this irks Pakistan also. They are very steadfast and strong on it, like no other country. They keep backing India on political positions. They are there in BRICS, in a lot of different partnerships. So I don't think India should feel insecure if they are if they have some defense-related talks with Pakistan. After all, the biggest supplier of arms to Pakistan remains both the United States and China. And Russia cannot barge into that market, and they will not hamper India's interest. But having said that, nonetheless, India has to keep watching and putting pressure on Russia that they keep reinsuring their traditional relations with India, and India has to sort out what is best for the two. The other thing is that Lavrov very clearly opposed the drone attacks in Pakistan. It played on the sentiment of on Syria, on the fact that there should be no war in Iran, on Israel. So on a lot of issues in which the Pakistani public has been talking about, but not the Pakistani leadership as much. They played on those issues. So Russia is also playing its own games vis-a-vis Pakistan and the Islamic world. And their whole, the links that they have with Syria, Iran, and other countries, and the changing geopolitics in West Asia. So there's a lot involved in this.
So we see a sort of a progress in the interstate relationship as far as Russia and Pakistan are concerned. You're saying India doesn't need to be insecure, and for reasons good enough. But, just to take your closing comments, how much of a difference do you think these high-profile visits between, these countries really, though of course not denying that they aren't important, but how much of a difference really on the ground level do these visits make?
I think they make a big difference because it's an overall input not just into bilateral or foreign relations, but it impacts domestic politics. Foreign policy, after all, emerges and has an impact on domestic politics, even when it's not tangible, even when it's not evident. And gradually, you're going to see closer relations between Pakistan and Russia because of Central Asia, their neighborhood with Tajikistan, the pipelines, their relationship with China, Afghanistan and West Asia. So India really has to push much more on all these issues. So they don't, in the long run, have any kind of setback. It's unlikely they will have a setback, but they have to push, and they should not take relations with all these countries for granted. And I think improved relations in the region and in the neighborhood, which are also part of India's overall strategy, need to be pushed.
All right. So interesting geopolitical situation developing over there. US, I'm sure, would be closely watching these developments. Thanks so much, Professor Chenoy, for joining me this week and sharing your thoughts with us. With that, we take a very short break. After that, as the first debate kicks off, find out who leads the US presidential race. Is it Romney or Obama? Stay tuned. You're watching World Panorama. After several difficult weeks, Republican Mitt Romney found his footing on Wednesday night in a strong debate performance against Democratic President Barack Obama. The question is whether it is too late to make a difference. The debate at the University of Denver was the first of 3 scheduled before the election day. Here's what it looked like.
An aggressive Mitt Romney took the fight to President Barack Obama on October 3rd as the Republican tried to breathe new life into his struggling campaign with a solid performance. As polls before the debate showed Obama having a slight edge among voters, Romney was on the offensive throughout the 90-minute encounter between the two rivals at the University of Denver. Obama and Romney exchanged barbs over taxes, healthcare, and the role of the government, among other economic issues.
Now, I'm concerned that the path that we're on has just been unsuccessful. The president has a view very similar to the view he had when he ran 4 years ago, that a bigger government, spending more, taxing more, regulating more, if you will, trickle-down government would work. That's not the right answer for America. I'll restore the vitality that gets America working again.
We created 23 million new jobs. We went from deficit to surplus, and businesses did very well. So in some ways, we've got some data on which approach is more likely to create jobs and opportunity for Americans. And I believe that the economy works best when middle-class families are getting tax breaks so that they've got some money in their pockets.
Standing on the same stage as the president for the first time, Romney took full advantage of the opportunity to convince voters that he's up to the task of leading the nation. Speaking in crisp sentences, Romney came armed with a quiver full of zingers built for a long afterlife on cable television and YouTube.
But the right answer is not to have the federal government take over health care and start mandating to the providers across America, telling a patient and a doctor what kind of treatment they can have. That's the wrong way to go. The private market and individual responsibility always work best.
Obama, by contrast, looked unhappy to be on the stage. His answers were verbose to say the least, laden with facts but short on vision.
For 18 months, he's been running on this tax plan. And now, 5 weeks before the election, he's saying that his big, bold idea is never mind. And the fact is that if you are lowering the rates the way you described, Governor, then it is not possible to come up with enough deductions and loopholes that only affect high-income individuals to avoid either raising the deficit or burdening the middle class.
According to a CNN ORC international poll taken after the debate, 67% thought Romney won, compared to 25% for Obama. On a basic level, it was a clash of two ideologies: the president's democratic vision of a supporting role for the government and Romney's Republican vision that government should get out of the way of businesses and let them create jobs.
But I'm not sure that Mitt Romney got the debate that he needed. Mitt Romney, down in the polls, needed to make this a pivot point in how we perceive the campaign. He needed to press Barack Obama. He needed to have Barack Obama back on his heels defending his record.
The debate was the first of 3 such face-offs scheduled in the next 4 weeks. Vice President Joe Biden and Romney's running mate US Representative Paul Ryan will debate once on October 11th.
The past few days saw dramatic escalation in tensions between Turkey and Syria. The border violence has added a dangerous new dimension to Syria's civil war, dragging Syria's neighbors deeper into a conflict that activists say has already killed 30,000 people since an uprising against Bashar al-Assad's regime began in 2011. Here's what happened.
Turkey's parliament voted to authorize the deployment of troops in Syria as countries around the world warned of escalating tension in the region. The mandate, valid for 1 year, was passed by 320 votes in the 550-seat Turkish parliament. Meanwhile, in New York, the United Nations Security Council strongly condemned a mortar attack by Syria on a Turkish border town that killed 5 people on Thursday.
The members of the Security Council underscored that this incident highlighted the grave impact the crisis in Syria has on the security of its neighbors and on regional peace and stability. The members of the Council demanded that such violations of international law stop immediately and are not repeated.
Wednesday's incident marked the first time that Turkish civilians have been killed by Syrian fire since the start of an uprising in Syria against President Bashar al-Assad in March 2011. Turkish Prime Minister said that Turkey would never want to start a war and Parliament had authorized foreign deployment of troops as a deterrent after the fatal Syrian shelling of southeast Turkey.
Tabii Türkiye olarak bizler bu bölgede
Turkey wants peace and only peace in the region as well as safety. That is our sole concern. We don't want war and we never would. The consequence of the wars in the region, in Iraq and Afghanistan, is obvious.
Çıkarmak gibi bir derdimiz olamaz.
In the most serious cross-border escalation of the 18-month uprising in Syria, Turkey hit back after what it called the last straw when a mortar hit a residential neighborhood of the southern border town of Akkale on Wednesday.
The October 1st parliamentary election in Georgia produced the kind of result that we don't expect from elections in post-Soviet countries. The opposition won. The governing party of Mikhail Saakashvili has been defeated by the Georgian Dream Coalition, led by Georgia's wealthiest man, Bidzina Ivanishvili. Now, will the new election result help normalize the strained relations with Russia? A look at the details.
Georgian President Mikhail Saakashvili conceded defeat in parliamentary elections on Tuesday and declared himself an opposition politician. His defeat comes as an extraordinary event in a country whose other post-Soviet leaders left office under pressure from chanting crowds and the threat of civil war.
Dear countrymen, as preliminary results of the parliamentary elections show, it is clear that the Georgian Dream got the majority.
The new Georgian government will be led by billionaire businessman and philanthropist Bidzina Ivanishvili, who made his fortune in Russia and until recently was little known to the 4.5 million people in his homeland on the Black Sea.
It's been almost a year since my first political statement. I don't think we have made single mistake during this year. I used all the best opportunities which only existed in the Georgian reality. I mean the best people in the political establishment. We have created the best coalition. We have got all our decisions right. So the result is no coincidence.
International monitors welcomed the election result.
Despite a very polarized campaign that included harsh rhetoric and shortcomings, the Georgian people have freely expressed their will at the ballot box. The process has shown a healthy respect for fundamental freedoms at the heart of democratic elections, and we expect the final count will truly reflect the choice of the voters.
4 years after Russia went to war with Georgia, Moscow expressed hope that the victory of Georgia's opposition will help normalize Tbilisi's fraught relations with Moscow.
With that, we take a very quick break. Actor Elizabeth Hurley makes New York's Empire State Building go pink. Find out why in just a few minutes. Thanks for staying with us. Time now to take a look at some of the other international news in a quick wrap. Here's Globe Watch.
Senior foreign affairs officials from Southeast Asian countries and regional partners met in Manila on Friday for the first expanded maritime forum. Discussions focused on the relevance of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, a law that has come into focus as sovereignty disputes crop up in the region's oceans. The forum takes place as a maritime row heats up over islands in the East China Sea to which both China and Japan lay claim. Afghan President Hamid Karzai said on Thursday that presidential elections in 2014, when he must step down, would be held on time, despite a continuing insurgency and mounting security concerns over a simultaneous NATO combat troop exit. Karzai's increasingly unpopular government had been mulling a change in election timing to avoid overlapping with the drawdown of US-led NATO forces due to be completed by the end of 2014. German Economy Minister Philipp Reussler praised Spain for taking the right path with its structural reforms and fiscal deficit. Speaking to journalists after his meeting at the German Chamber of Commerce, Reussler expressed his country's respect for Spain and for the people who are suffering the brunt of the government's austerity measures. Reussler also said it was necessary to generate growth and jobs.
And if you've missed the week's biggest sporting events, here's your chance to catch up. We bring you sports action.
Michael Schumacher announced his retirement from Formula One for the second time, and at the age of 43 on Thursday, after failing to rekindle his old Ferrari magic in a disappointing comeback with Mercedes. The team had already announced last week that the champion would be replaced by McLaren's Lewis Hamilton for the start of 2013 campaign. The German, given a standing ovation after concluding the statement, spoke of his relief and sense of freedom in deciding to walk away once the season ends in Brazil in November. A rampant Cristiano Ronaldo scored his second hat-trick in 4 days, and Karim Benzema netted a spectacular overhead kick to fire Real Madrid to a crushing 4-1 win at Ajax Amsterdam in Champions League match on Wednesday. Chasing a 10th European title that has eluded them since 2002, Jose Mourinho's side opened a 2-0 lead against a disappointing Ajax. However, they fought back strongly in the second period as Real appeared to take their foot off the gas before Ronaldo completed his Champions League treble. European Ryder Cup captain Jose Maria Ozabal was still riding a wave of emotion on Tuesday after his team's spectacular win over the United States on Sunday. Europe fought back from 10-6 down going into Sunday's singles matches, and Italian Francesco Molinari halved the final game against former world number 1 Tiger Woods to seal a dramatic 4.5 to 13.5 win over the shell-shocked hosts.
Time now for all the very latest news from the world of movies and lifestyle. Here's our entertainment wrap. Ethan Hawke never acted in a horror movie before, but that didn't stop the actor from jumping at the chance to star in the upcoming horror thriller Sinister. Directed by Scott Derrickson, Sinister tells the story of a true crime novelist who discovers a box of mysterious, disturbing home movies that plunge his family into a nightmarish experience of supernatural horror. Sinister opens in theatres on 12th October. Louis Vuitton presented a Spring-Summer 2013 collection on 3rd October inside the Louvre Museum in the heart of Paris. The set, which consisted of 4 large escalators with yellow-striped steps, reflected the motif of symmetry and the idea of mirror images that pervaded the show. Models stepped on the runway in pairs wearing similar patterns with identical styling. American designer Marc Jacobs has been creative designer of the French fashion house Louis Vuitton since 1997. Robert Pattinson has topped Glamour UK's Sexiest Men list. It's the 4th time in a row that the Twilight actor led the list. Pattinson beat out the likes of Tyler Lautner, Chris Hemsworth and Ryan Gosling to retain his title. James Bond himself, Daniel Craig, graces the November issue of Vanity Fair magazine just in time for the next installment of the super spy series Skyfall. The photo, which features Craig sitting in front of a gold-painted woman, was taken for the magazine by renowned photographer Annie Leibovitz. Elizabeth Hurley helped kick off Breast Cancer Awareness Month by lighting New York's Empire State Building pink on Monday. Hurley and William Lauder, the company's executive chairman and son of late founder Evelyn Lauder, was joined by breast cancer survivors at the lighting. That's all we have for you in this edition of World Panorama. I'll be back next week, same time, with more world news. Till then, you can join us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates from us. This week, we wrap up with celebrations on the 22nd anniversary of the German reunification. While there were parades in Germany, Rio de Janeiro's iconic Christ the Redeemer statue was illuminated in black, red and gold, the colors of Germany's flag. Goodbye and thanks for watching.